Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 141. There's a Yuji vs Yuta scene. Yuji barehanded versus Yuta with a sword. Yuji is having a hard time fighting Yuta. Yuji explained that when facing an enemy using ordinary weapons, he only needed to strengthen his body with cursed energy so as not to get hurt. But this time the enemy's weapon has been filled with cursed energy, and even worse, the enemy is Yuta, who has more cursed energy than Gojo Satoru. According to Yuji, if he is hit by Yuta's sword, his body will be cut into small pieces like sushi. To avoid attack after attack, Yuji ran towards the car. When entering the car, Yuji was lucky to have found a small knife. When he saw Yuji suddenly holding a knife, Yuta was surprised where Yuji got the knife. And finally Yuta realized that Itadori had gotten a knife from inside the car. Here Yuta assumes that the knife currently owned by Yuji will not be able to injure him because according to Yuta, Yuji's knife is just an ordinary knife. After getting the Itadori knife, he remembered the lesson about the slow share demon technique from Gojo Satoru. The technique was used during an emergency. This technique is used to flow curse energy into ordinary weapons so that the weapon becomes a cursed weapon. According to Gojo, the slow demon technique should not be used often, because if you do a fight by relying on a curse tool, you will forget the practice of manipulating curses possessed by a shaman. Of course, that is not very good, while trying to do a slow demon technique where Yuji still hasn't really mastered it. As a result, the energy that flows into the knife weapon is not maximized. Then because it was during the clash of knives and swords, Yuji still focused on the knife. Therefore Yuji failed to anticipate Yuta's attack. Because suddenly Yuta kicked Yuji's body very hard. That is why the use of this technique is not very good, because it can cause the user to focus too much on the weapon, thus forgetting other fighting techniques. And Yuji ended up bouncing very far, and it made him very surprised because only being hit by a kick he felt very strong damage from Yuta. When Yuji got back up and tried to fight Yuta with his half-energy curse blade, Yuji's knife and Yuta's sword clashed with each other again. However, this time was different from before because the current Yuji's blade might have been on par with Yuta's sword, so both their swords and blades were broken. When his sword was broken, Yuta finally realized that Yuji was not easy to defeat because Yuji was indeed Gojo's student. Yuta's sword and Yuji's blade were broken. Finally, Yuji thought that this time they would fight without weapons. But suddenly Yuji surprisingly couldn't move at all, and it turned out that there was Rika's curse that held Yuji's body and head here. Rika asked Yuta, "What are you doing, Yuta?" Yuta replied, "Just playing around, Rika-chan." When Yuji was hugged by Rika, Yuji couldn't move at all. That way Yuta also took advantage of the opportunity to immediately attack Yuji. Yuta immediately stabbed Yuji with his broken sword. When he stabbed Yuji, Yuta also apologized to Yuji because Yuta didn't actually target Yuji. He only targeted the Sukuna that was inside Yuji's body, who was considered the suspect who had cut off the Toja's hand during the incident in Shibuya. After Yuji was stabbed, Sukuna immediately played with his tongue. Maybe he was angry with Yuta. But surprisingly suddenly after seeing the tunnel, Sukuna immediately smiled. Maybe in the tunnel there was something that caught Sukuna's attention. Then the scene is shifted to the fight between Choso vs Naoya. Here Choso looks very desperate, where he repeatedly gets hit by Naoya. Choso also felt that Naoya's speed was getting faster and faster. When he saw Naoya's technique, Choso couldn't understand the technique at all because it was so fast. Naoya's attack on Choso didn't have any gaps at all. Choso also cannot use the blood that is outside his body to be used as a weapon, Byakuran technique or his blood manipulation technique. Then even though Choso was repeatedly hit by Naoya's blows, Choso was still able to get up. Naoya was surprised by this, where Naoya also said, "You are tough too. Who are you actually?" He answered, "I am the eldest of 10 siblings." Here Choso is smart. When talking to each other with Naoya, Choso takes advantage of the moment to use his slowing rate say technique. In the next chapter, Choso will risk everything as an eldest brother. Is it possible that Choso will die? We will see later.